All right, now I think it's time to delve deeper into the experiences that shape leaders. We have the privilege to hear from a woman whose name has become synonymous with healthcare innovation. Ms. Sylvana Sinha with Praava Health has shown us that compassionate care and technological advancement can go hand in hand. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Sylvana Sinha to the stage. Thank you so much. It's really an honor to be here with you today, and also to learn more about NSU Startup Next. Really excited to see that we have more inspiring entrepreneurs in Bangladesh. We have so many problems that need solving and smart people that we need to help us to solve them. So very, very inspired to be around all of you. I'm just going to speak for a few minutes and actually would love to make this more interactive, and we'll open it up for questions. But I'll just open with a few comments. And I'm actually not going to speak in detail about Praava because I think hopefully many of you already know about Praava, but happy to answer questions about Praava during the Q&A. The first thing I want to say is that I hope everyone here realizes how lucky we all are. I was recently interviewed by a group of young people who asked me whether I attribute my success more to hard work or to luck. And I work really hard, but my answer is actually still luck. And they responded to me that, men are usually much more likely to attribute their success to hard work than women. And I don't actually think that means that men work harder. I think on average, it means that men are more willing to assume that their success, that they deserve it, as opposed to acknowledging the role of luck. But I really believe what we often hear, which is that 90% of life is actually luck. In order for all of us to actually even be here in this room, it means that we were born into families that were able to afford us the opportunity to be educated. And especially for the young women in the room, we were born into families that valued women's education. And so those things in and of themselves are huge blessings. We're extraordinary with that. So acknowledging that and always remembering that privilege, we have 10% of what happens to us left that we have the opportunity to contribute to and to control. And as I think about the things that we can control in our lives, and as I think about the futures that you have ahead of you, I can't predict what's going to happen to each of you, of course, none of us can. But I'm really excited to see what your futures hold, because we're just living in such an extraordinary time. Before the year 1900, I think that human knowledge was doubling approximately every century. By the middle of the 20th century, human knowledge was doubling every 25 years. Today, in 2024, human knowledge is doubling every 12 hours. It's incredible. Every single day, there's not a day that passes without some awesome progress. Whether it be in AI or medicine or genetics or alternative energy sources. And all of these areas are going to change our lives in ways that we're going to see and experience in our lifetimes. And it's really overwhelming to think about, but it's also really exciting. And if I'm honest, I'm a little jealous that you're going to get to see more of it than I am. I'm already starting to reflect on my own mortality, and it's exciting to be part of the world that we're in today, although there's a lot sobering that's happening as well, of course. As the world keeps changing and is moving so fast, the second thing I want you to remember, the first point was about luck. The second thing that I want you to remember is that the only thing you can control entirely is your character. In a world full of shortcuts, where transactional interactions are easier than ever, where we cannot count on accountability mechanisms to right wrongs, where we're often presented with opportunities to undermine other people for personal benefit, always remember your character, because it's the only thing you can control entirely. Character. For me, the word character includes a lot of things. It includes integrity, humility, curiosity, honesty, loyalty, kindness, and diligence. And I want to focus on this diligence word. You have to work hard at everything. If you keep working hard at everything you do, that's how you're going to find the thing that you really love and what your calling is. And outside of luck, I believe diligence is the single biggest contributor to your success. Work diligently and be prepared. There's a saying that says, chance favors the prepared. So if you work hard and you're prepared for anything, we get back to that elusive luck concept, but then we're able to even create luck for ourselves so that when opportunities present themselves, you'll find a way to create luck and goodwill in your world and be prepared for whatever opportunities present themselves. Now, as women leaders, and I believe some of you in this room aspire to be, we live in a world where the odds are stacked against us. But we're also living in a world where if women participated in the global economy equivalently to the level men participate, we can add $26 trillion to the global GDP next year. 28 trillion, which is actually 26% of global GDP. This is more than the size of the US GDP today. And so if we choose to contribute, are able to rise to the occasion and are welcomed, we have huge opportunity to create change in this world. Now, we also know, as was highlighted by Nafisa, that women entrepreneurs and investors are underrepresented. Everywhere in the world, even in the United States, where capital markets are more sophisticated than anywhere else. And that challenge gets worse as we enter into emerging markets like Bangladesh. Although it has to be noted that we're very proud in Bangladesh that in terms of labor force participation of women, we're at 42%, which is higher than any other country in the region. It's 10 points higher than India. So we do have to hold on to that. I think we should be very proud. Now, there's a lot of data recounting that women entrepreneurs are held to higher standards with investors and are treated differently in startup ecosystems. And I have to tell you guys, I don't really let that bother me. Because anytime anyone tries to disrupt anything, it will be met with challenge. And honestly, I love getting the harder questions from investors, because then I have to figure out how to answer those questions. And having the answer to those questions ultimately makes me a better leader. The data is clear that for various reasons, probably including the fact that we get challenged more, women-led businesses outperform the market. Companies with more women in top management have a higher return on equity. Female-led companies performed, in another study, 63% better than all male founding teams. And women-led teams generated a 35% higher ROI than all male teams. In terms of how effectively companies turn $1 of investment into $1 of revenue, startups founded and co-founded by women are significantly better investments. A BCG report found that for every $1 of funding, female-founded startups generated 78 cents, compared to male-founded startups, which generated just 31 cents, less than 50%. There's another reason that female founders are smart investment decisions. Women everywhere in the world are responsible for the vast majority of household consumption decisions. Probably 80% of household consumption decisions are made by our mothers when we were growing up, right? I think everyone in this room has probably experienced that. Consumer demand is growing across all segments, healthcare, education, real estate, agriculture, energy, technology, fashion. And women-led business have firsthand insights into how to serve the changing needs of those consumers. I imagine and look forward to a world where women have access to more capital to create and scale solutions to massive global problems. And it's also very clear women tend to build businesses that also often have a social impact. I imagine a world where women are founding billion-dollar businesses all over the world. A world where we can harness our power and build wealth to contribute to a better world. I hope that we all get to see that world, and I'm excited to see all the ways all of you are going to contribute to it. And I'm not just speaking to the women in the room, we need men to hold us up as well. So everybody needs to be a part of this transformation. Whatever you decide to do with your life, whether it's to become an entrepreneur, like me, or if you decide to become the chairman and CEO of a multinational corporation like Indra Nooyi, who was PepsiCo's chair and CEO, the first immigrant CEO of a Fortune 50 company in the United States. Dream big and work tirelessly to achieve those dreams. You have to work hard at everything. That's how you will find what you love. That's how you will figure out what you are good at. And eventually, that's where the magic happens. Aristotle said, excellence is a habit, not a virtue. So build that habit of excellence into your daily life. We're all born with different talents, but each of us has a different capacity to achieve greatness in our lives, in large and small ways. So dream big and work hard. I'll just leave you with a quote. One of my role models is a Nobel Peace Prize must always achieve your current capacity to achieve that. The work is in building that capacity in yourself and believing in yourself. I wish each of you all the best of luck. So now I'll just open it up for diligence and the need to really be prepared for anything that comes your way. But again, I think that ultimately makes you a better leader. I think that's the biggest thing that I'll point out. The other thing is you get asked a lot more questions about your personal life than male counterparts. And this is true not just for entrepreneurs, I think it's true for women leaders across the board. If you look at, Bangladesh is actually not a great example because our female leaders have been in traditional marriages and families, but they've also never been challenged about whether they can handle that in addition to being leaders. But in other countries we've seen across the world, when Hillary Clinton, for example, was running for president, her daughter was pregnant with the first grandchild, and people even asked, she wasn't even the mother, she was a grandmother, oh, will she be able to handle that? We've seen the same thing in New Zealand and in other countries across the world, that women's personal lives are questioned and challenged in different ways than it's true for men. I've gotten many questions about my personal life, about my reproductive choices, about things that are really completely irrelevant to whether I'm capable of running a company. But unfortunately, that is still happening. I hope it will change in the coming decades.
Thank you so much. As the next question, I think I have another question here. So healthcare is actually a complex and challenging field, and guiding to the complexities of regulatory challenges, how did you build trust with your very first customer in Praava Health? How did that come into being?
Yeah. So I think, first of all, it was a long journey to get to day one. So I had the idea to start Praava in August of 2014, and we started serving patients in August of 2017. So it was 3 years from idea to cutting the ribbon of our flagship facility, which if you really think about it, is not that long actually. But we took our time and we had to make sure we had all of the requisite permitting and regulatory approvals in place before we even cut that ribbon. And in a healthcare context, that means every single machine in our building has to have a separate license. Our pharmacy has a separate license. Our doctors have to have all of their proper certifications and accreditations. So there's a long list of things that need to be in place even before you get to serve that first patient. And then once you get to serve that first patient, in terms of earning trust, I mean, I say that it really happens one patient at a time. And it's something that has to be treated with a lot of respect. Because everyone who's coming into Praava's facility is coming with their own set of experiences and biases. And frankly, often they're prepared to distrust you because of maybe other experiences they've had in other parts of the healthcare system in Bangladesh or beyond. And so trust has to be earned one patient at a time. And a lot of the way we've messaged that is, I don't know, how many people here have been to Praava? I hope a lot of you. Well, I hope that's a great number. I hope even more of you will come visit us if you need healthcare or if your loved ones need healthcare. It's a very clean facility. The branding is very modern. All of those things for me were ways that we were trying to signal our quality, in addition to, of course, dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's and making sure all the regulatory is in place and posting all of those things, throughout the building as well. The other thing is, I think, really starting with why have we started this company, right? We started this company because my mother had a terrible experience in the healthcare system in Bangladesh when I was visiting Bangladesh for a family wedding. I moved to Bangladesh for the first time in my life to start this company because I became obsessed with solving this problem. And, I think those motivations are also important for our patients to understand that we're here to try to do something different. We're not perfect. We sometimes let patients down. Healthcare is not perfect. Science is not perfect. Doctors are not genius. Doctors are not God. And so nothing is perfect, but I think the main thing is that we are aspiring for something better and to constantly communicate that to our patients. And just giving them time, right? This is a country where the average amount of time doctors spend with patients is actually 48 seconds. Praava doctors spend at least 15 minutes with our patients. And so I think those are some of the various ways we're trying to restore trust. The other thing is the foundation of quality, right? So our lab is one of only 7 international standard labs in the whole country. There are only 7 international standard labs in Bangladesh. Our pharmacy is one of only a few hundred model pharmacies, which means we source directly from manufacturers and there's always a grade A pharmacist on site. So there's no risk of counterfeit. So those baseline things are also very important. So there's many layers of it.
All right, let's move on. I think I took a lot of hard time. Let's move on to the audience. Her in the back, Apple with the hijab.
What do you look for when building a team?
Sorry?
What do you look for when building a team?
So, great question. So I have one of my team members is here. I look for curiosity and integrity. I think those 2 things are critical. Of course, I can't hire a chief medical officer who only has curiosity and integrity. You also have to have, so when I was starting it, I'm not a doctor. I'm a lawyer by training, not a scientist. So I had to find people who had skills that I didn't have. So I had to find a lab director. I had to find another senior lab director. I had to find a senior medical director. I had to find all kinds of people who had skills that I didn't have. And so I had to first identify what those skills were. So as a founder, you don't need to be able to do every job in the building, but you need to be able to recognize your own strengths, but also your own limitations. And then from there, focus on the types of qualities that you're looking for in terms of the type of people that you're looking to bring in. In particular, I would say the first 20 employees we hired at Praava, I was deeply involved in recruiting them. to ensure that they really, first of all, understood my values in building the company and shared those values. And they weren't just excited to join a sexy startup. You know, they actually understood that this was a big dream and a hard thing to do. Healthcare is very complex. And it's really not like, you know, as straightforward as an e-commerce site, right? And the risks are much higher. People, you know, the move fast and break things mantra of startups, it doesn't work in healthcare. Because if you move fast and break things in healthcare, people die. So all of those things, like looking to connect with people who appreciated the seriousness of what we were doing, and had the curiosity and excitement about bringing a new form of healthcare to Bangladesh were the things that I looked for. Good question, thank you.
The next question, I think Apu here with the glasses. Yes, her and then you. Yes. I wanted to pink bag and then Apu in front of you.
Love the pink bag.
I'd like to ask that what are some main factors that have helped you in your successful business endeavor?
So I have an incredible team. I have a really incredible team. They're very committed and they work tirelessly every day to help us to achieve, you know, what we need to achieve. That is one of the main factors. Also, I think empowering that team with the right values. So we spend a lot of time on culture trainings. We have smile values. SMILE are our values. S is for service. M is for my Praava. I is for integrity. L is for listening. E is for excellence. And I think like really embedding those values in our teams and encouraging them to act at any given moment with whatever problem they might be facing with those values to represent the organization. I think that those investments in culture have been very important to me personally. I personally conduct hospitality training once a quarter for all new hires. I think that, you know, luck is a factor, and you know, there's this, I think it's Jay-Z, there's this quote, the genius thing we did was we didn't give up. And I think that that applies to our team. We have been through lots of ups and downs and lots of near-death experiences. When the pandemic hit, we didn't pay salaries for 2 months. We were completely tapped out. We didn't know what was going to happen. Nobody was going to the doctor because they were scared to leave their house. We figured out a way to kind of devote we pivoted our resources. We donated our medical professionals' services to the government. And we rolled out telemedicine for our own patients. I mean, I think also like constantly staying on your toes, constantly staying alert and awake and listening to what was happening around us and how we could best use our resources in a changing environment. There's an Indra Nooyi quote also that's every morning you have to wake up with the belief that somebody else is like innovating and moving faster than you are. And it's like that paranoia that has to keep you going. We've seen a lot of copycats come up in the market for Praava, and I actually welcome that competition because it keeps us on our toes. And also, to be honest with you, the more people that, if those copycats are able to provide high quality healthcare for more Bangladeshi people, then that's success to me as well.
Yes, a question from there.
Hello, ma'am. Hi. So I'm quite sure that it was very challenging for you to work with this health sector in 2014, right? So my question was like, I want to start a business. That people are like, don't go for this sector, go for that trade you want, right? So from when you started this, did you face this kind of questions like why you wanted to work with this sector, and from where you get that confident that it will be this much successful?
Yeah, good question. So in the first year, so I knew I had a bad experience in healthcare, so that was the problem that I became obsessed with. And so I would say, and I'm not saying that this is what you were saying, but I do hear from young people that they just want to start a company and they don't know what kind of company it is, and they're trying to figure out, like, don't start a company just because you think you should or because you think entrepreneurship is glamorous, because it really is not glamorous at all. Start a company because you want to solve a problem. So that's the thing, like, find the problem that you are obsessed with solving. And how did I know that? But I didn't know that I could do it at first. So I became obsessed with the problem. That was very clear. That part was easy. But then the reason that I started to believe that we could do something to solve the problem is I started to meet people who had the skills I didn't have and who wanted to be part of this change. And that was what started to give me, it's like basically starting to build a team was what really made me believe, okay, maybe we can do this. So they knew I couldn't do it all, no one can do anything by themselves. Like, no entrepreneur in the world, Jeff Bezos, I don't care who you are. Everything is done by a team. And one person gets to be the face of it, but everything is done by a team. And so as I started to meet people, again, who had the skills I didn't have, who shared my values, who were ready to jump and be part of this, that was what started to give me more and more confidence that this was possible.
Up in the pink shirt, can we get a mic there, please? Could you ask now? I'll repeat it if needed.
Yeah, I mean, as you get older, you become more self-aware. And I think the concept of excellence being a habit is that you are still working hard and trying to do your best, no matter what it is, even if it's something that you're not good at, right? Which, like, I'll tell you, like, I do Pilates. I do Pilates 3-4 times a week, okay? I'm not gonna ever be like the best Pilates person. But I treat the practice of Pilates with discipline. I do it, 3 hours, 4 hours a week. It's on my calendar, like a meeting. It's respected. And so, like, to me, that's what excellence is. Is like, whatever it is you're going to do, like give it your best. But it doesn't mean you have to be the best. You don't have to be best at everything you do. But if you give everything that you do your best, you'll start to learn the things that you're better at and the places where you have limitations. Does that make sense?
Sorry, I'll repeat the question. If a student is still in their undergrad year, is there any opportunities in Praava Health for them to work in?
Yeah, we take interns, actually. We would love to have you guys apply for internships. Just send an email to careers@praavahealth.com with your profile, and we take interns in almost every department. So we would love to, have you guys come and spend time with us.
Really good question, guys. Career@praavahealth.com.
Careers. There's
Careers.
an S at the end.
All right, careers. I think this is the most interesting part for you all here, isn't it? Careers@praavahealth.com.
Yes.
Double A after the B, if I'm right. Double A after the B in Praava.
CAREERS at
Praava.
Praava Health. I think it's here, right?
Yes.
PRAAVAHEALT.com.
Praava Health. All right. So, before I move on to you, so I have another question. Sorry if I'm taking your time. So, startups, we know it's something in tech-based and it's about solving problems, but mostly startups are based on the tech landscape, and the tech landscape is very evolving always. And for the aspiring entrepreneurs, how would you advise them to stay ahead of the curve? Like, the tech landscape is completely always dynamic, it is always changing. So people who are aspiring entrepreneurs here, what would you give? I mean, what are your advices for them to stay ahead of the curve? Like she said, I don't have to be the best, but I think it's a satisfaction that I gave my very, very best. That's one thing. And what is something else that you say?
So, I mean, I think in the early days in particular, like staying connected, like NSU Startups, I'll make a plug for you guys. Like I think these types of networks didn't exist when I started in Bangladesh, when I started my company. I think staying connected to these types of networks, and there are other such ecosystems that are being built here in Bangladesh, where you should really talk to other entrepreneurs who are at different stages of their journey. In the beginnings, I think back on that phase, it's non-linear and you're learning a lot. You're talking to different people and you're hearing different things. And in that, I used to keep a notebook and literally like write everything down that people said. And I wouldn't always even know what the relevance would be of what they were saying until later. And so like, be a sponge, like learn from anyone you can who is working in the startup ecosystem at any level. Even if you want to start a climate tech company, right? Like, there are probably things you can take from today's conversation. Like, it doesn't have to be in your industry. Just talk to different people in different industries and see what you can learn from them about their journeys and about their approaches to problem solving. There's many different ways to start a company. And so each person has to figure out what is most authentic and right for them in terms of how they're going to go about it.
Question.
Sorry.
So I suddenly remembered that I read this interview of yours on Future Startup back from 2019. I guess it was 5 years ago. You said that the whole journey of Praava was very personal because you were struggling with your mother's treatment in Bangladesh, and that triggered the sense of having a credible medical provider in Bangladesh so that other people didn't have to suffer. And you just said that you have to sort of find out your unique angle, your passion. So as a founder, how important would you say it is to have a personal conviction, a personal story or journey to have the sort of sense of conviction to grow your startup? Because it's not going to be a 9 to 5. It's going to be stressful. It's going to be long nights and long days. So how important would you say having this personal touch or story is to success for any founder, for them?
Yeah, I think that I don't think you have to have had a personal experience. I do think you'll find, in my experience globally, most healthcare founders tend to have had a personal experience in healthcare. But I think that what's most important is that you're obsessed with solving a problem, whatever your motivation might be, right? That you see a gap in the market and you just feel like somebody has to solve this and I'm the one who should do it. I'm the one who's uniquely positioned to be the one to solve it. Like, I remember in college, this was like, I had my 25-year college reunion this May, which is crazy to me to think about. But when I was in college, I used to drink a lot of Diet Coke, and I would use those instant coffee packs, and I would put the instant coffee in the Diet Coke. And now, Coke has marketed this product that's like, Coke that's flavored like coffee. And I'm like, gosh, I should have sold them my idea, but I didn't do it. So there's plenty of ideas that all of us have all the time that we don't go off and do, right? And so you have to, but I didn't care enough about it, ultimately, right? But if it was something that I was very passionate about, maybe I would have gone and written a letter to Coke, right? So figure out the thing that you are really uniquely, fired up about. But I don't think you necessarily have had to have had a personal experience, but even if whether you have or you haven't, there's a book called The Innovation Mindset that actually features Praava in it. But there's a lot of really interesting stuff in it about starting a company and solving problems. And one of the things that the author says, and it's written by a woman named Lorraine Marchand, and I really recommend it. She talks about the rule of 100. And she says, when you're looking to start a company or within an existing company, launch a new product, talk to 100 potential consumers of that product.
Right.
And that's what I did in my own. I talked to a lot of patients. Even though I had had an experience, I was not Bangladeshi in terms of, ethnically I was Bangladeshi. I'd never lived in Bangladesh. So I had to talk to 100 Bangladeshis living here and hear from them, what are your pain points in the healthcare system? And so I think in any sector, I think that rule of 100 applies.
I think we'll take 2 more questions together and then we move on to wrapping up the session.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for an insightful session. I'm pretty sure all of us here are inspired by your amazing speech.
in confidence to even take the first step to pitch the idea. So what do you think are the necessary steps, or what do you think we should do to overcome those problems that we have and be successful to even pitch the idea to, let's say, someone who can help us out?
Very good question. So I think that it's related to my last answer to the question. The doubts can be minimized through research, right? Again, it goes back to my point on working hard and on diligence, right? Like, doubts are an emotional thing, right? Building a company takes a lot of passion and takes a lot of emotion, but ultimately has to also logically work. The economics have to work, the product market fit has to work, right? And so the way you can minimize that emotion, doubt, is through empirical research. Again, talking to 100 potential consumers of the product, talking to potential people who might work on your team. For me, those are the things that helped me to minimize my doubts and gave me the utmost confidence that what we were trying to do was badly needed in Bangladesh. And though it was going to be very challenging, I really believed it was going to work.
Thank you.
Last question from Hannah, the beauty show.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Raju. I have a startup, but at this current situation, like, I'm struggling a lot, like for like fundings. It's like initial fundings, like maybe I need 3-4 lakh startup, but I'm struggling to manage this. But I know it's when I'll go for the next stage. That time the money will not be a big deal for me, because many investor will come to invest that time. But now my question is, how did you manage your initial fundings at that stage?
Yeah.
But I don't know your background,
Yeah.
and I don't know what you are doing, where you link up and everything. But I want to know how you manage that initial fundings. Thank you.
Well, first of all, congratulations on taking the step to found something that's really challenging. I really congratulate you. So I had a career before I started Praava. I was 37 years old, and so I was able to self-fund to some extent. And so my situation is quite different. I was not a student. What year are you in school?
Which year? Immortal, which year are you in?
Which year? Third year?
Which semester, which year?
Second year. So you have 2 more years before graduation. If I were you, I would maybe work part-time to try to earn some of the funding that you might need to keep the business going. It's okay if it moves slowly, but forward movement is important, right? And so you don't want to stagnate. If you've already started this, you don't want to stagnate. I don't know what sector your business is in, but you should. So maybe you should talk to some of the founders in the education space. Like Chico is one of the very successful ones. 10-Minute School is another. Maybe they may know funders who might, be interested in your segment, and even they may be willing to put in a little bit. I don't know. I don't know them that well that I can say. But the other thing that I will say, and there are many people who at a very early age found companies and do very well. But I think for me, at least, I'm grateful that I started a little later, both because I had some financial stability, but also because it's very challenging to start a company. And I think I had a little more emotional maturity than I personally had when I was younger. But that's just my journey. But it's very, very challenging. And again, I really applaud you for going on this endeavor. Good luck.
I know I say that will be the last question, but for the last question, I'll actually end with a female entrepreneur we have here. Can you please pass the mic to her?
Hello, ma'am. First, it's an honor to be in your presence. Since you talked about character and you talked about being diligent, these are the most important things that I really value in my life. But my question is, as a woman, as an entrepreneur, how do you manage or how do you lead a team without sounding too bossy? You know, as a woman, we often get labeled as too bossy when the woman is really decisive and very vocal about her decisions. My second question is, since you are a lawyer and I'm also a student of law, so how did that shift happen? Starting from the legal field and coming to healthcare system, do you ever regret that it would have been better for you if you remained in the legal field and never came into the startup industry? So these are the two questions.
Yeah. So I'll answer the second question first. I mean, I think education is a way of thinking, right? Whether you study engineering or law, it teaches you, it creates frameworks in your mind for how to think. And I always knew I wouldn't be a lawyer forever. I didn't want to be a lawyer forever. But I'm grateful for the skills it taught me and for the credibility it brings me. And as I have a lot of foreign investors, I think the fact that I am a lawyer gives them a lot of confidence that I understand how to manage risk, that I'm going to make sure that I'm, obeying the laws of this country, etc. In terms of the bossy question, who cares? Like, I really don't care. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm not sorry actually. Like I don't mean to be dismissive.
Unapologetic about it.
I don't mean to be dismissive of your question though. That's why I'm saying sorry. I think that what I've learned is that the men who have been attracted to come and work in my organization, specifically at the management level, who are reporting directly to me, tend to be men who come from families with strong women in them, and they're comfortable with that. And our culture has many people like that, actually. And so, was I labeled as bossy from the age of 3 by my family? Absolutely. And that's probably, I think back on it, probably wasn't appropriate, right? But, I wouldn't worry about it. I think the main thing is that you need to make sure that you know what you're talking about, that your directives are backed by sound logic and data, which is the most important thing. And if people are going to call that bossy, then there's nothing you can do about it. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Good luck to you.
That was a nice ending to the question and answer session.
Thank you all so much. It's really inspiring to meet you, and really, I'm excited to see what you all will do in the next decades ahead.
Sorry, we cannot accommodate any more questions as we're on a time crunch, but thank you so much, Sylvana, ma'am, for not only sharing your experience, but also paving the way for the innovators or maybe possible co-founders we have here. Thank you so much, ma'am.
No, thank you for having me.